Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. There were chaotic scenes in some sections of Portmore St. Catherine as residents refused to obey physical distancing rules in some areas while waiting in long lines at business establishments. St. Catherine remains under lockdown to contain the spread of COVID-19, but residents got additional days to do business. TVJ's Andrew Ladley was in the area and gave us this update.
I'm standing at the Port Henderson Plaza in Portmore, St. Catherine, where there's a chaotic scene of residents trying to get into a money transfer and remittance establishment behind me. Now, I want you to pay attention to how closely the residents are standing to each other. They aren't standing 6 feet apart, which is the order which was handed down by the government and which comes into effect today. Now, I also want you to pay attention to the fact that the police are on the ground. I spoke with one of the officers who told me that he has tried to enforce the law, but the people aren't moving. So I also spoke with some of the residents to find out why they aren't moving. One of them said that, hey, sir, we're simply too hungry. We can't wait any longer. This is a very tedious process, and we simply just want to get the money so that we can get our groceries.
We know that the corona is here and is over security, but we need more time. And if we don't have food in our house, you're going to have more dead on your hand because enough people don't have it. Enough people don't have it. This morning I wake up, I don't have a nickel or a dime. I come to collect my little money and sit there. And at 4 o'clock, then when me reach out the land, I'm going to say done. So all me I go manage with me and myself and my children and my grandpicnic them. We need more time. And the country shut down from when and this morning the country up. All we are going to go shop. We don't have nowhere food run out of our house. Picnic now go to school so everyone knows there's a long only per crowd in our house. We need more time, Prime Minister. Please, I'm asking you.
That report from Andrew Ladley in St. Catherine. Meanwhile, it was a similar situation in some sections of Linstead, St. Catherine, but more residents were wearing masks. TVJ's Kirk Wright is in the area and now joins us live via phone. Kirk?
Thank you very much, Andrea. You might be hearing what is an ambulance behind me. I just start by telling you that the streets of Linstead are crammed, and just to paint as clear as possible a picture for you so what Linstead now looks like, it would appear as if everybody who lives in Linstead came out today to do their businesses. Now, particularly remittance services, those areas, those business places are crammed. People are frustrated. People are complaining of not being here from as early as 6 in the morning and not being able to get to. A lady told us earlier on that she was here last week at one of the remittance services and she had to go home because the lines were long. Indiscipline, I gather, is another part of the problem. People are told to step back to maintain physical distancing, but other people are skipping the lines and making it difficult for those who are trying to be orderly. That's one of the major problems we have here in Linstead. People who are trying to get supplies. Bread is in high demand here in Linstead. A lady told me that she paid as much as over $300 for bread, and she said that was clear price gouging. At the moment, the town is packed, and I can tell you, the security forces are overrun. They're swarmed by people who are just moving about and saying can't regard to what the police officers and the security forces have to say. They're taking no instructions at this time. In one particular pharmacy, Dixon's Pharmacy, that seems to be running a little bit more orderly. There's police outside and they're maintaining the social distance inside. But overall, people have thrown safety to the wind, Andrew.
Thank you very much, our reporter Kirk Wright in Linstead, St. Catherine. And as restrictions tighten due to the spread of the coronavirus, the business community remains apprehensive about a total lockdown of the country. We have details in this report.
Of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Alliance are predicting grave consequences if a total lockdown of the country is done. President of the Chamber, Lloyd Distant, argues that the economy is unique, so this approach cannot be adopted as in other countries.
We hear the discussions on both sides. We need to lock down, we need to lock down. And on the other side, we hear persons having the conversation that says lockdown can't work for the kind of society and economy that we have. We are not a Denmark that can provide, what's the figure? They're providing 5,000 US to each citizen every month or whatever the figures are. That's not where we are. So we just have to be very mindful of how do we retain our society at one level and then ensure that as we come out on the end of this, that we have not lost all the business opportunities that when the business is closed, that we can actually get them restarted and get the economy going.
For President of the MSME Alliance, Donovan Wignall, there will be devastating economic consequences if a lockdown is ordered.
Our economy cannot afford that. What is happening now, where selected areas are shut down, and the curfew hours, and with the public relations around distancing, and how does one conduct themselves in their businesses and in public, in terms of wearing the requisite mask, etc. I think it is working so far. There are several theories out there about the herd theory, where when the entire herd gets infected, then everybody becomes immune. I don't so much subscribe to that. I think what needs to happen is a collaborative approach.
The government has resisted implementing a total lockdown as a measure to be used to contain the spread of the coronavirus in Jamaica. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has sought to explain why his administration decided to use its powers under the Disaster Risk Management Act to contain the spread of the coronavirus. He was responding to calls by opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips for an island-wide state of emergency to adequately respond to the COVID-19 crisis. Mr. Holness says the cabinet discussed this matter extensively.
When the pandemic was declared and the cabinet contemplated how should we proceed, should we proceed under the Emergency Powers Act, or do we proceed under the Disaster Risk Management Act? We have decided to go under the Disaster Risk Management Act. Your first tool to use would be the Disaster Risk Management Act, and then if the situation escalated to where you needed to bring in stricter powers and the suspension of rights in a formal way, then you would go to the powers reserved under the Emergency Powers Act.
Holness added that the crisis requires an immediate response. He says the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice will be doing a review of some critical pieces of legislation.
What we have discovered is that the legislation under the health element of the response, the Quarantine Act and other pieces of legislation, this Act and the Emergency Powers Act need to be thoroughly reviewed to make sure that they are all in line, that the penalties and offences are properly codified in law so that we don't face any constitutional challenge, which, in our democracy, somebody will probably test it just for testing its sake. So we recognize that this is something that we have to do, and we have actually started the work on that.
And Mr. Holness was speaking in Parliament last night. And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we're continuing the news. Business process outsourcing company Alorica is insisting that it has been complying with directives set out by the government to curb the spread of the coronavirus. In a statement, the company said it implemented measures early last month to further protect and guide team members. Despite best efforts, it received news that there was a confirmed case of COVID-19 at its Portmore campus on April 9. The call center says it is confident that its facilities and operations met and exceeded government requirements. The company highlights that recent health inspection conducted on April 1 by the Ministry of Health confirmed that its Portmore facility was fit for operation. At the Kingston branch, it was voluntarily closed when news came that a member of the Portmore branch tested positive for COVID-19. Meanwhile, Alorica says it has taken note of malicious rumors and misstatements circulating in social media about the company. It says those statements put the safety and security of team members at risk. With the country's focus on the coronavirus pandemic, some residents in Islington, Portland are appealing to the authorities to pay attention to the drought conditions wreaking havoc in the area. TVJ's Prince Moore has details.
Water tanks everywhere, but there's no water inside them. Instead, residents of Islington in Portland have to trek miles to the nearest well to get the precious commodity. But even that is running low.
They wash clothes on it, they bathe same place. We have to come and take it up and drink it at the same time. And is this the quality health system that we live into for all these decades? Me 68 and me born come meet this same condition. So imagine over 100 years is this situation we living in Islington.
The problem centers around the fact that there is no piped water in the area, and so the residents have to rely on community water tanks or purchase tanks. Residents tell us it hasn't rained in the parish for nearly 2 months, but that's not unusual at this time of the year, as it's the dry season. What the people are disappointed with is the level of preparedness, or lack thereof. They're advocating for water to be trucked to the community on a regular basis, particularly given the COVID-19 threat. So far, the parish has 7 cases, and with a heavy emphasis on hygiene, without water, the people say their lives are at great risk.
Around 3 months now, we don't get no water up here. I have to come from morning for a river. I am 67-year-old. When I come home, I have to take it from my head and carry out stuff for me. We over bush. So we get water to wash your hand.
Every day, government has must get water to wash your hand. And around 3 months now, no water, I think no coming out the tank now. So we will get the water from.
But even with the water distribution, there are concerns.
Sometimes when the truck do come out the tank them and fill the tank them, one person fill up 6 black tank out of peer other guys to fulfill them. So very few. So it's still, these people believe they're doing good, but I believe they want to reshuffle and come again.
We made attempts to contact the Member of Parliament for East Portland, Anne-Marie Vaz, to no avail. A few days after we interviewed the residents, however, she posted pictures on her social media pages of water being trucked to the community. Prince Moore, TVJ News.
In other news, there was some concern about the Public Accounts Committee PAC's online meeting on Tuesday, as no government members participated. While the meeting was in progress, opposition member Lisa Hanna announced that a government member, Everett Warmington, had emailed his disapproval of the meeting and questioned its validity.
I'm seeing an email coming from member Warmington. Says he's waiting on the meeting. Anything done in this matter will be null and void, and he will deal with it in Parliament today. So I'm not sure if somebody can call him, because it would really be a waste of check your email, Peter, because, or can somebody call him to tell him that we're in the meeting?
PAC Chairman Mark Golding expressed surprise at the email, suggesting that all members, including those on the government side, had agreed to the meeting.
That the House had agreed that we can proceed this way. The Special Select Committee has been proceeding in this way. So for him to raise this, during our meeting is
quite in character.
Yeah, quite in character and highly disruptive. Highly disruptive. But the absence of the government members is significant.
Mr. Warmington raised the matter in Parliament Tuesday afternoon.
There is no provision in the standing orders for any committee to be meeting virtually, or what you call it, or on Zoom. All right? Last week, there was some discussion between the House Leader and the Leader of Opposition Business as to dealing with some virtual parliament. That committee met today to make a recommendation to the House to be sent to the Standing Orders Committee.
Mr. Warmington insists that Parliament's standing orders would have to be amended before the committee meetings can be held online. The PAC discussed the Auditor General's report on the Caribbean Maritime University. Residents of Yala St. Thomas are calling on authorities to do more speed checks in the area. This after a two-vehicle collision along the main road yesterday. It's reported that around 7:45 in the morning, a van which was traveling from the Yalas Bay area crashed into a car while it was making a U-turn. It's understood that the driver of the van was speeding. One resident said because the schools are out, the situation has gotten worse.
It's a little stretch of road. And whenever time the people they come, everybody want to race. Nobody want to wait on anybody. Everybody's just racing along like a highway. And it's more than one accident every day. It's more than one accident and mishap going on the road. It's as if nobody have any caution and waiting on anybody. You're turning off in the lane and vehicle just come and hit another one.
There were no reports of injuries. And time now for a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In the next edition of the health report, we'll look at pregnant women and COVID-19.
A lot of the questions that I get from the pregnant women are, what do we do? Is there any special precaution for us? Unfortunately, as I said before, the pregnant women are just at risk as the general population. There's no added risk, right, that we recognize at this time. And so it's the same general principles that have been touted by the government and the social media platforms.
That's the health report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's Healthy Living tip. If you contract COVID-19, call your midwife or antenatal care provider and inform them about your illness and request instructions on how to proceed with antenatal care appointments and deliver plans during the course of your illness.
In news from the region, St. Lucia is reporting that the 15 persons confirmed with COVID-19 have fully recovered. This now places St. Lucia at a 100% recovery of all COVID-19 cases. Among the 15 cases St. Lucia recorded were individuals who fell in the high-risk category. They recovered with no complications or need for critical care. However, the St. Lucian government says the laboratory is testing for COVID-19 and it will be getting help from the Caribbean Public Health Agency. According to the country's government, it has modified its testing strategy by testing an increased number of samples. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.